Welcome to Look, Listen, Laugh. Now, I'm genuinely excited to have my first guest ever on this podcast be none other than Rob Brydon. Now, we're going to sit down and discuss numerous things, including Rob's favourite book, film, and album. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation. I love this guy. You will too. Rob Brydon. Well, Rob, I want to thank you for doing this. I genuinely appreciate because there is not really any benefit for you to do this in terms of publicity. This is the first ever. I have no followers for this podcast. There's no precedent to it. Like you don't have any reference to whether this is going to be a good interview or not. So the fact that you have said yes to me to do this is, I think, indicative of you as a person. And it's a very kind gesture, so thank you, Rob.
I think it's indicative of my very poor judgment. And when you lay the facts out the way you have, I'm going to change my mind. No, it's lovely to see you. We've not seen each other properly. You came to the show the other day, but we'd not seen each other since you supported me when I was here 4 years ago.
During the Opera House,
yeah
which was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And because I was a big fan of you before, working with you. I'd read.
That's probably why I like you.
I'd read your autobiography and familiar with all your work, and it's interesting. Like you have a preconceived idea of someone before meeting them, and you come across as very nice. And when I met you, you lived up to that. It was. Here I am, I'm opening for you at the Opera House. I'm in my dressing room, I get a tap on the door, I open the door, there you are. You come in, you sit down, we have a chat for, 10, 15 minutes beforehand, just chatting, and you took the time.
It hardly makes me a great humanitarian, does it? I mean, it was just...
The fact that you took the time to do that, like I've opened for people before, and they're like, hey, how you doing? And that's it. You actually took the time to sort of ingratiate yourself and have a conversation.
You got me on a good day. I went on the project, or the project, as they call it here the other night, and the guy, so that's presented by a few people, and the guy that was next to me said, we met before, do you know when? And I thought he looked vaguely familiar.
Right.
And he'd opened for me at a show,
right?
But I didn't remember him. And I mentioned you on the show, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't remember. I said, and he said, I said, the thing is, on this tour, we don't have any support acts because there's 2 acts to it. And he said, I said, but Joel Ozborn supported me on thing, and I met up with him the other day, which made it just worse because I remembered your name and I'd hooked up with you again. So I thought, oh God.
Well, what I'm trying to say, the footnote to this, you're very forgettable, but it's all right. But the fact is, at the end of that run, you said to me, let's keep in contact.
You're making it worse for this guy now, this other guy.
But I don't even know who that was, so it's all right. But you said to me at the end, let's keep in contact, and you gave me your email.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that people say, let's keep in contact. It's a very like American, let's do lunch, I'll see you around. And you never hear from him again. But the fact is, we've corresponded over those years, back and forth throughout COVID, and the fact that you actually took the time to do that is, for me, indicative of you as a person, and not only a nice person, a kind person.
Wow.
So
well, thank you very much. Well, there we go.
But you're on tour this time with a full band.
Yeah.
How does that compare to before, when you were, it's just you and a microphone, and that's it, really?
It's better, I have to say. It's much better. Well, you know this. The life of a touring comedian is pretty lonely.
Yeah.
It really is. You're traveling, and you get to a town, and you go to your hotel, and if things are going well, you get a nice hotel.
Yeah.
But you're on your own. If you're out here, you're in beautiful places. You're other side of the world, and you have this odd life where you have to peak and sparkle at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And then everybody goes, "Way!" And then you come off, and you're on your own.
Back in your hotel.
Back to the hotel.
Yeah.
So I've got an 8-piece band, and this is a show I toured in Britain quite a bit. They're such lovely people. First of all, they're super talented, but then they're lovely people.
Yes.
And people keep remarking on that because we've got new crew now when we're over here, new tour manager, and they go, God, you've got such a nice group of people, you know, because it's not always the case, you know. So I prefer it. I just prefer it. We have such fun. We're in Melbourne now. We got here yesterday, and we got shows tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. But we're still here. Then we're here Sunday, Monday, Tuesday before we go on back to Brisbane.
Right.
And we've got things planned. We're going to some
As a group?
springs. We're going
great.
to hot springs. We've got this meal arranged. We've got this. We've got that. And it's great.
No, I could sense that backstage the other night when we were all chatting, like Gabby, and she's just like a ray of light. She's just so nice.
Gabriella Swallow, my cellist.
Yes.
You can't miss her. She's got this flame red hair. I saw her. She's in my band because you should look her up. She's fantastic. They all are. But Gabby's just great. I saw her playing for Judith Owen, who is this wonderful singer, performer. I got to know Judith in London, and Gabby, and they'd have Pedro Secundo on percussion, and Gabby and Judith on piano, and there's Gab, and I just couldn't take my eyes off her. There's something about her and her commitment when she's playing the cello. I've never seen her play the cello anything less than 100%.
Yeah.
I always joke. I say I go out every night and I give them 78%, and I will. Although that's interesting, because let's talk about this. See what you think about this. We did the third night in Sydney, and I was a bit tired, and I was aware during it that I wasn't giving it quite as much energy and quite as much going out and grabbing them as usual. But the standing ovation at the end was bigger than the standing ovations the night before. I mean, when do you call it a standing ovation? What percentage have to stand? Because I call it a standing ovation, even if just a group stand, right?
Sure.
but this was...
No, everyone, we were all up.
Yeah, they're all up. Which one were you at? Were you at
a Sunday?
Oh, you were there that night, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right. So I was tired that night. And it reminded me of experiences I've had in the past and then forgotten. I always remember Anthony Hopkins saying in an interview, "Don't give them everything. You know, don't give the audience everything. Make them do some of the work."
Yes.
Talking about when he's on stage. And I went, "Oh yeah, that's right," because I'd done it before. Yeah. What's your experience?
No, I agree. I think I always look at it like a conversation. You know, so they come to you as you go to them.
That's good.
Sometimes, you're talking with someone and they're not giving you much, so you've got to do all the legwork and carry it. It's still a conversation, but it's more work for you.
Yeah.
But I find if they're giving, which the audience I felt on Sunday was,
it
was like this to and fro. So especially with, the great stuff with you doing the crowd work, which I love. Like every night, I always come out when I was opening for you at the opera, and I watch all of that segment of it, and I just loved it. Just the way, I think I've mentioned it to you before, the way watching you shit on an audience in such a warm, loving way. It's like, I haven't seen someone do it that well, where it's just, there's no nastiness there.
No, that's Barry Humphries. I get all that from Barry Humphries.
Right.
A bit of Don Rickles, Frankie Howard, you know. But Barry, really.
But you as a person, though, shines through on stage.
Yeah, well, it suits me. It suits my personality, you see, to do that, because, I'm not going to be so self-deprecating. I mean, I'm aware of what my qualities are, and there's a warmth and a niceness, as Edna Everett would say. And that works for me, and I've done that for years, because I can say things that are quite harsh, quite sharp, and audiences like being insulted by me.
Yes. And like that guy the other night who you had got out before to do the Glockenspiel at the Opera House, and his whole family was there at the Opera House. He's there the other night. You're having this conversation with him, and then he says, we spoke to you at the Opera House. You got me up on stage. So it was like you had that similar conversation of, tearing the two sons apart.
Exactly. Well, which just shows I do the same stuff. I mean, which comedians do. It's
totally. But it is so repeatable too. Like, because the greats, I've always found you can go out and watch again. Like I used to work for the Amazing Jonathan, and his show was always the same, but it always had a little slant on it, a little different with the audience interaction, and watch it over and over again. And it's like with your crowd work and the Glockenspiel, I know what's coming, and I'm dying laughing on Sunday night.
Well, we should explain to people that so in the course of the show, I sort of build up a cast of characters, and I name them, and I come back to them, and they're callbacks and what have you. So in Sydney on that night, on the Sunday night, I'm talking to. I always look to find. I look to find the oldest person in the room. I want to find the youngest person in the room, and I want to find a family. Because you get a family, then you can kind of tear them apart, try and divide them, and all that kind of stuff. So I find this family, 2 boys and the parents, and I'm asking the boys about themselves, and I don't recognize them. I don't remember them.
Of course,
them,
come on. Yeah.
And and then eventually I end up on the dad. So I started with the boy. I do remember it was Chris, Tom,
Bob
dad,
Ross. Yeah.
He looked like Bob Ross.
Yeah.
The dad was Matt, and the mum was Kathy.
Kathy Young,
wasn't it?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And when I get to the dad, he says, "Yeah, well," and the others just talk to me back and forth. And he goes, "Actually, we've spoken to you before, Rob. We were at the Opera House." And so I would have done exactly the same shtick with them. And he was the guy, because I get someone up to do this gag with the glockenspiel, and I got him up. So I was saying, "Oh, okay. Well, you're going to recognise this routine. This will be like seeing an old friend."
But the great thing is, the testament to how much people love it when you do that to them. He's come back and he's bought similar seats to where he would have in the second row, right down the front again. Like, wait, here we go again.
Yeah.
So it was that to me, I just looked at that as that's just testament to the fact that you're able to put someone through the ringer and they come back for more.
Oh, great, good.
That's great.
Good.
And also too, in terms of I was talking to Mark, your tour manager, about it, and I was saying, all the band members, everyone's so nice, and he was saying, yeah, everyone's great on this, and this was a nice compliment. He goes, but you see, it's a trickle down effect from the top, And I thought, that was a nice, a nice observation.
Yeah, Mark joined us, and
Ethan was. From your last,
Ivan got COVID.
I know.
So he had to. Ivan was the Aussie tour manager. Well, although he's actually Welsh, he lives out here.
Yeah.
I came out last time with Jen, my British Welsh tour manager, and then Ivan had all the local knowledge, and we went around, and you got to know Ivan and da da da. Well, he picked me up at Auckland Airport after my mega flight. And dropped me in my hotel room. I haven't seen him again.
Wow! So he picked you up. So you were in the vicinity of him.
Oh yeah. Well, I straight away I thought, have I got it as well? Anyway, I didn't.
Yes.
But he tested positive, and then had to stay in his room for however long in Auckland while we'd already left. And in the end, he was really bushed with it, so we had to go. So luckily, Mark came in, and I remember him saying to me. You have these things called a lobby call, which is when the band, we all need to be in the lobby, ready to go on, And he was amazed, because he's worked more with music acts. He's in the band, he's in the jet, you see.
He mentioned,
And he's a really great guy. We have great conversations. And he said, it's amazing. The band are all there on time. Because it's not a rock and roll band.
Herding cats.
And we're and I'm always on time. So, so it was a nice bunch of people.
Yeah, it was. It was. Just then when you were talking, it just reminded me of something that I've been meaning to ask you, because I thought it was hilarious. It was backstage, and there was the blonde girl that was touring with you, Ivan. She was working with Ivan on the last tour. Sarah maybe, or Sarah. Or... Okay, all right. Well, let's just say.
Yeah.
She came, you and I were in your dressing room after the show.
Yeah.
She came in and said, listen, there's a couple here to see you. And you went, oh, great. You said, listen, look, in 10 minutes, come back and let me know. And then, say that we've got a pressing engagement.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've seen that done before, no problem. They come in, it was
you have to have an out, you have to have an exit strategy.
Now, it was an elderly couple, very nice.
Yeah.
And they sat down with you, and, I was just off to the side, it's sort of on the peripheral of the conversation. And then after 10 minutes, she came back in and she goes, Rob, with that pressing engagement that you got to go. And you said, excuse me, can't you see I'm talking to my dear friends? I'm so sorry.
Did I do
Please,
that? Did I?
Not now. And then she walked out, and I'm dying inside, but I didn't want to do it because it would have looked weird. And I'm thinking, was that set up for me so I would react? Or what was the thought process? Because I thought it was the most hilarious thing, but obviously I couldn't laugh.
I don't remember it. I don't know. It could have been number one, look, genuinely come back after singing, because those things, when you're doing a meet and greet with someone and you don't know them, it can be very difficult to bring it to a close, right? Right. So it doesn't make you the worst person in the world to say, look, come back after 10 minutes.
Yeah, no,
say that we got something to do, right?
It's a given.
So it could have been that. It could have been that I was doing it to make you laugh.
Yeah, the fact that you did that, I just thought that is brilliant. It's like, these are my dear friends. I don't know how.
Well, there's a funny. There's a great story with Don Rickles again, where he's in a restaurant on a date and he says he knew Sinatra, and he said to Sinatra, Frank, could you come over and just at some point say, hey, Don, how you doing? It'll impress this girl I'm with. He said, yeah, sure. So they're sitting there eating, and eventually Sinatra comes over. He goes, hey, Don, how you doing? He goes, Frank, I'm eating, please. So I probably got the idea from that.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, so it's always been in the back of my mind for the last 4 years, and it was
I don't,
very funny.
I don't remember it, and as I say, it could be, I just don't remember it.
Yeah. Well, like other opening acts, but it's no
I remember you.
Yeah, yes, and on this tour, my wife Erica said the other night, like, what a great comedian, great singer, but showman. She said, you really, you know, the way that you held that audience and navigated your life story, it was great. Your life story, but through the narrative of songs. It was, it was clearly a lot of work has gone into this show.
Well, that's so nice to hear. It's kind of music to my ears, because I was really wary of doing this show. For people that don't know, which is most people, this is a show with a band and with music, and the framework is me telling my life story, although it has to be said, it peters off. It turns into a big sing-along. so it's particularly the early days, my childhood and getting going and everything, and the sort of initial struggles to get work.
Sure, interesting stuff.
Yeah. I tell that, and I illustrate it. So when I talk about being at school and doing musicals, I sing a little bit from Guys and Dolls. I talk about going to drama school. So I sing a song that I did there as part of a silly thing, and I sing a song that I heard when I was there and that reminds me, and that's Broken Bicycles by Tom Waits.
Yeah.
And it's the first introspective song of the evening, and when I'm singing that, I know that a big part of the audience are going, what is this show? A lot of people come to it, they don't know there's going to be a band.
That's what someone said the other
Even though the
night,
poster, Rob Brydon and his fabulous band, A Night of Songs and Laughter.
Yes.
I think you see Gabby and a couple of others on the poster, depending which poster we've got out here. But they still don't know, because they've kind of gone, Rob Brydon's in here, now we're going to see him, okay. So I'm very aware at the beginning of the show that there's an element of what is this? And when you're singing an introspective kind of song, there are a few in the show like that. But that first one, Broken Bicycles, I'm there going, I wonder what they're thinking. So it's lovely. I often get texts saying, I love Broken Bicycles.
Yes.
Which is great. But it came about because I've always sung, and I'd wanted to do a show with singing in it. I wanted to do a musical, but I think I said, maybe I say it in the show, I keep on having kids, so there's never a good time to be out 7 nights a week or 6 nights a week and knackered, because musicals, I know it's not being a doctor or a nurse or a junior doctor. I know it's not working in a coal mine, but there are lots of ways to be tired. And one of them is being in a musical, right? And you've got to look after your voice and all that sort of stuff. But the main reason I hadn't done something with music was fear of ridicule. Because when a comedian in this day and age, I think less so in the past, says, no, I'm going to sing, it's like, it seems indulgent. So I put it off, and then just by chance, I'd started to guest sing in friends' shows. And I was doing a bit at my friend Joe Stilgo, fantastic, his show. And producer Ed Snape was in the audience, who I knew anyway. And afterwards he said, you should do something like that. This was a cabaret show. And I said, well, yeah, I wanted to, but, you know, and I said, look, you go and arrange it. And of course he did.
Oh, wow.
So then I auditioned, I saw 6 musical directors, all of whom so talented. But Paul Herbert, who is my guy, we got on straight away. I could just tell there was a rapport there. So I chose him. And then we began for about a year meeting each other once a week in a rehearsal room. I'd bring some songs, he'd bring some songs. And one of the big things he did for me was improve my voice. He's an expert on the voice. And
So, and when was this? When would you have started doing that?
Well, let me think now. This would be about 20s. Well, when was I out here?
That was 2019. Because I say that because I was listening to you just before the show. Reese was your dear friend. Reese was playing the piano, and you were singing. And I was listening. And I go, shit, he's got a good voice. Like I could hear it through the other room, and so I'm wondering at that. That's why I'm thinking at that point, had you already done the vocal training?
My dates aren't really adding up, are they here? Because I mean, I could go into my diary. And
no big deal. But I was just wondering at that point,
I'd like
you already
to know,
had a solid voice in 2019.
Well, I'd always. I don't know. I'd have to look this up because it certainly improved. Working with Paul, he does so many things that involve opening of the voice, like silent panting. Just to open that, vibrations. Cut out dairy, for example.
Right.
Big difference.
Right.
You lose all your phlegm. Nobody likes that word, but there it is. You lose all that. So that's what happened. So we, and then what we did was we went to this lovely venue in Piccadilly, a cabaret venue called Crazy Coq's, and it was just me and him.
Right.
And we did a bare version of what the current show is.
Yeah, he said that it was just him on the piano,
And
you
me,
two, and it was in this. He said that it sold out like that, and it was.
Well, yeah, it's not difficult. It's tiny. I mean, if it's sold out like that, it's not like Jerry
Doing
Seinfeld
the
playing
Palladium.
Madison Square Garden. It was seats about 90 people.
But
if it didn't sell out quickly, I'd be in trouble.
Cancel the tour.
Yeah.
But he said that was so much fun. You two just bouncing off of each other like that, but then. You didn't think, oh, maybe we could just tour it this way,
No, because it was too exposed. You need a bit more to play big rooms.
Because you've got a 7-piece band, like that's
eight.
Eight. Yes,
Piece.
that's right, 8-piece.
And I joke in the show about the cost of them and everything. But no, they're fantastic. But I had one of the things I then had to do. So then we got the band together. I knew a few of the musicians, so I wanted Gabby, and I wanted Giacomo Smith, who isn't with us out here, but he played clarinet and sax back home. Wonderful American guy from Saratoga, New York, and he's just great. And then we started. But here's the thing: it was a really steep learning curve because I've got years of experience of being funny on a stage and acting on a stage. But I haven't got years of experience of singing. So straight away I started to say yes when friends asked me to pop up on their show because I wanted to get the stage time,
Yeah.
But it's taken me a long time. I'm there now, but it's taken me a long time to feel comfortable holding the mic at the mic stand and moving it without feeling like a tit. Without feeling that I think I'm Rod Stewart, right? You just need to feel... You need to have enough hours on the stage to feel relaxed to do that, and that took me a long time.
But you sell it well, and also too, I can see you visualizing what you're singing. You're connected to what you're singing.
That's right.
So, and that makes it like physically, you see that coming through.
Yes.
And like someone like Sinatra was great at that. Where
well, it's the obvious comparison.
Yeah.
Because I'm constantly. It's either him or Elvis. It becomes tiresome after a while.
But seeing that the other night, it's like, he's really connected to what he's communicating here. But I guess, in acting, it's like in your early work, like you see it, like with Mariam and Jeff, like you see that you're connected and visualizing what you're communicating. You're looking off beyond out into an old house that you used to live in, or wherever, or looking at a schoolyard that used to be.
Right.
But you're connected to what you're like. You can see that you visually are seeing it, which obviously us as the audience.
Well, in that show, a lot of it was written, but a lot of it was improvised, and that helps because you are sort of when he's looking there and he's thinking, I found that role very easy, and I am envisaging what I'm seeing. With a show like this, it's more difficult because it is the same show every night. Right. The audience changes, but essentially it's the same show every night. So that's quite a challenge.
However, though, it is the same show every night, but for me it was great to watch the band members genuinely laughing when you were working the audience or whatever you were doing. Like I'm watching it, and you can tell when someone's faking a laugh. But this was and I'm thinking, how many times have they seen this show? And it's still, which, like I was saying, it's a very repeatable experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great because the band is 5 Brits. We've got 3 Aussies, so they've not seen it before. But the Brits have seen it many times.
Well, and they were laughing as hard as the audience at times. Like I was genuinely, pleased to see. Wow, it's not, because there's nothing worse than if you've got a band on, you're up there doing it, and they're just.
So occasionally you look round and they look bored. Yeah, not good.
Yeah,
not good.
So speaking of all the music that you've been doing, the concept of this podcast is basically having my guests bring along their favorite album, favorite book, and favorite film. And for me and the viewers and listeners to get an insight into my guest through the things that they love, basically.
Well, yeah, I can't say it's favourite. I've always struggled with that. You often get asked in interviews or little things you can do in newspapers, what's your best this? I find that really hard. I'm not a very binary a person in the sense of, I always think it's quite childlike, because it's the sort of thing that kids ask you when they're very little, what's the best colour? Or, and they really want to know. Yeah. And I go, well, I don't know. So what I've chosen are 3 things I really like, but I'm not claiming these are, these are the ones, the only ones, because I find that virtually impossible.
Yeah.
But these are ones I hold in high esteem.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you were able to give one of your favorite albums, which is a Springsteen album, which I knew it was going to be a Springsteen album.
What a surprise.
And for me, the album that you have selected is Western Stars.
Western Stars, a recent
yes.
one. You might think that if someone was choosing a Bruce, they might go for Born to Run or Darkness on the Edge of Town or, any. But this very recent came out a few years ago. Came out when we were making the trip just before we started filming the trip to Italy, to Spain. Trip to Spain.
Right.
And I played this in the car incessantly, and I won over Steve Coogan.
Wow, you did.
Who had previously considered Bruce to be not his sort of thing, and I got him to listen, and he liked it, and I bought it for him at the end of the shoot, and I gave it to him, and he tells me it's still in the cellophane.
Which, that's, of course it is. That's the perfect, perfect.
It's a kind of, it's a sort of, it's not a concept album, I suppose, but it's themed in that it's sort of the Midwest / Californian Jimmy Webb kind of sound. It starts. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say it's very cinematic in its approach, and it's this sort of majestic landscape. I felt that it was creating.
You knew it already, because you love Bruce too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was. Well, I remember when it first came out, and I emailed you about it and said, have you seen? Have you? Because the film came out later. Have you listened to it? I said my favorite song on it is the Moonlight Hotel, and you wrote right back going, that's my favorite too. Yeah. It's just. Yeah.
It's a motel, not a hotel.
Sorry, motel.
But, Heartbreak Hotel, Moonlight Motel.
Yeah, it's easy to make that.
Coronary Cafe. I mean, these things have to go together. Moonlight Motel. We worked on that song for this tour.
You did?
Yes, I've got recordings of me and Paul doing that. There's a place on a stretch of road where nobody travels and nobody goes. It's a gorgeous song, but I couldn't find a justification for it because almost all the songs in the show, there's a reason I can explain them.
Yeah.
And with that one, it'd be, it's a nice song by Bruce. I think it's lovely. But
the idea in that of there's this real melancholy to it, but there's kind of a, I don't know, it's nice to sit in that melancholy,
Well, the great lines in it, there's a line in Moonlight Motel, which is about this old, kind of deserted now, I think.
Boarded up
old motel, where the narrator had pleasant experiences years ago. And he's looking at it and he says, pools filled with empty 8 foot deep.
Yes.
Pools filled
Yeah.
with empty. And
Yes.
there's a sign saying, "Children, be careful where you play." I mean, oh,
Yeah.
and he sits in the parking lot outside it and raises a glass to this
Whiskey.
presumably long lost love. I don't know, and that's the ending of the album, and it opens with the song "Hitchhiking,"
Yeah.
which is kind of a big wide open song about a guy going hitchhiking and who he meets. It's so so it takes you on a journey. And my favourites have sort of when it initially came out, The Wayfarer, which is the second track, I loved the rhythm. And it goes chin 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 chin. I went to a screening of the film of this that he was at in London, and they played on a beautiful sound system. When he came out afterwards, he went, "Hey, great sound," and it really was, because you're sat there, because I was very familiar with it by then, and the sound was great. So it's strange, and it's just, when you get a new record by your favorite artist, there's a lot of pressure on you to like it, right? And you've got to try and have as much invested in it. So when I first had this, I remember Sleepy Joe's Cafe came on, and I went, oh, this is a bit lightweight, but now it's one of my favorites.
It's funny you say that, because I when I first heard it, it was kind of jolting, and it's kind of that kind of Tex-Mex kind of thing.
Yes.
And I just thought, it just feels like it's pushing. You
Yes.
know? And then listening to it again, I got worked up in the and this was sometime I worked up in the joy of it.
That's
you
right.
know? And it was almost like, oh, this is a release from the rest of rest of the somber sort of atmosphere.
It's almost as if he knows what he's doing, isn't it? It's almost as if he's at the top of his game. Who'd have thought it? No, there's that one, and now there's another one, Tucson Train. First time I heard that, I kind of went, oh yeah, but bloody hell, a clever bugger. And then
again, driving, because my wife Erica, her mother lives in Tucson, so we're listening to it on the open highway, and just hearing it, it's like, this is like the perfect soundtrack to this trip. Driving through out of the Mojave Desert into Arizona, and I mean,
you can go through the Western Stars itself, big, majestic, cinematic thing. The one that I think brought Steve to tears in the car was Chasing Wild Horses.
That last minute, the instrumental on that, I'm getting chills thinking of it.
Yeah.
With the French horn, the slide.
It's beautiful.
And it's just and then it just all evaporates away just to that slide guitar
and
sound.
then it kind of segues into Sundown, doesn't it?
Yes.
Sundown is a glorious Jimmy Webb-like.
Yes.
Down. Oh, I mean, I love that.
And his voice on Sundown too. It almost goes in the Roy Orbison realm at
Roy
some point,
Orbison, Scott Walker, kind of big baritone kind of thing. Somewhere north of Nashville, simple, stripped back song, beautiful. And then, I mean, it's one after another. Stones is gorgeous. Then There Goes My Miracle.
Yeah.
Didn't he get a Grammy or maybe a Grammy nomination or something for that one? Again, that's very Roy Orbison, Scott Walker.
Yes. Yeah.
One of my early favourites was Hello Sunshine.
Yeah.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun. Reminiscent of Everybody's Talking, the Harry Nilsson
that's
song.
what I thought when I first heard it.
Yeah, that's what I was I go, what is this? And it's that.
Yeah.
But it's got its own thing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then finishing with Moonlight Motel.
Which I also love the version on the in the barn that they did. But the album version for me there's a sense of solitude to it, which
you and I are brothers from the same mother or different mother, whatever they say, because on the version on the live thing, doesn't Patty sing with him?
I believe so.
And nobody adores Patty more than I do. But it is, it's more solitary on this. That's so interesting. I've never heard anybody else make that observation.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you
me and you.
There's a reason you remember.
There's a reason I remember. Exactly. That's so true. Yeah, when she sang it, and but my preference would be this. Yeah.
Now, because you're a huge Springsteen fan, as am I. I remember that's one of the first things that we connected over, talking about our mutual love of the boss, and you've had the chance to actually meet him a few times. Now, I remember the first time you wrote in your book about it, right?
Yes, I did.
And
Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory?
Yes. The first time was he came over for a screening of The Promise, which is a documentary detailing all the sessions he did around Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Yes.
And he made a whole, I mean, there's so many songs, it's ludicrous. If you don't know much about Bruce, you look into him and the number of songs he's recorded and then just got rid of.
Tossed, yeah.
So he made what, I think he referred to them as genre songs. So they were slightly nostalgia feeling songs with a kind of maybe a 60s feel. I mean, and anyway, that was the documentary. So he came over for a screening of that, and I knew somebody that knew him. I know Mark Hagan, who's a renowned music producer, radio producer back home. So Mark introduced me to him, and I met John Landau as well that night, ever so briefly. But I meant nothing to him. I didn't know him. He said, "This is Rob. He's a comedian over here. How you doing? All right." And I held onto his hand a bit too long. And in my excitement, I said, "Thanks for the moments."
Which, you know, which is a poetic way of saying...
It was heartfelt.
Yeah, yeah.
But...
how was it received?
Yeah, right. Because what can you tell him? He's heard everything, you know. He's heard everything. There's nothing you can say. Anyway, so that was the one time. I took my friend Paul with me, and Paul was not quite so starstruck, although he's just as big a fan. Right. Not quite as starstruck, and was making him laugh.
Oh, the relaxed and yes.
Just because he was a bit relaxed, he wasn't. Yep. I was being a little too deferential.
Yeah, he was up on the pedestal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the next time, what then happened was I was in a film called Blinded by the Light, which is based on a memoir by Safraz Manzoor. Do you know it?
So, yeah, it was great. You were great in it.
Well, I do a silly little turn in it, but I get
Sorry,
to
I don't
sing.
mean to jump the gun here, but I believe that you met him one time in between that, which was, I remember you telling me how you flew out to see him on Broadway.
Oh, no, this is after. Yeah,
was that after that?
And this was the reason I got to go to Broadway, you see, because the reason I got to meet him. Because I was in the film, which is about a young guy, Pakistani guy, Safraz Manzoor, who grows up in Luton, experiences racism, finds Bruce's music, and that's his sort of salvation. And Bruce had read his book, and then he wrote a script, got it to Bruce, and they said, yes, you can have our music, which is...
Wow, yeah.
That's no mean feat, right?
Yeah.
So I knew Safraz a little bit. In fact, I'd seen him at that night at The Promise.
Right.
And he'd said, we're trying to get the script to Bruce, and I said, oh, well, good luck with that. I don't think that would ever happen. So then and it's directed by Gurinder Chadha, of course, from Bend It Like Beckham and many other wonderful things. So I go in, it's 2 days maybe on it, that's all. But I get to sing a bit of Thunder Road in a big production number with dancing and everything.
Yeah, at the market.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, well, whatever happens with this, Bruce is going to have to see it at some point. And I couldn't get past this notion that Bruce Springsteen would sit in a screening room and would see this idiot from Port Talbot singing a bit of Thunder
And he
Road.
would say to himself, I saw him at the Promise screening.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure he did that. So when I was on set, I got to know somebody from his record company, and she said, well, look, if you want to go and see the Broadway show and see him, just say. I said, yeah. So Claire and I flew out there on the Thursday, saw it on the Friday, flew back on the Saturday. And what was very funny was, and we got these amazing seats. We're 5 rows in the front, in the centre.
And it's only like a 900. Not the Wilton.
Which one was it?
I
can't remember.
Was it the Wilton Theatre?
I don't think it was.
No. That's
Well, wherever it was, it's probably flashing up on the screen now as we speak.
Yeah. It was like a 900 seat.
Yeah, it was not very many, and the show was absolutely
Walter Kerr.
That's
the
right.
Walter Kerr Theatre.
It was. Did you get over and see it?
I did.
Right. Wasn't it glorious?
I tell you, so many times I found myself on the edge of my seat, leaning, holding my breath.
Yeah.
And then this release.
It was such a piece of work. I mean, it was glorious. What a master storyteller. The sound was great because, of course, he's in that same room every night. So they had the sound. It was perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was so good. Anyway, sitting next to my wife and I, we're in what they call, you know this, but I'll explain it, what they call house seats. You always hold back a certain number of fantastic seats in case a friend is in town or you need them or whatever. And then you sell them on the day if you don't need it. So these two Brits next to me had come and queued up for hours in the hope that some house seats
would become available.
Yeah, and sure enough, they had.
Right.
So he's going, oh, well, you know. And I think he knew I was a Bruce fan, and we chat a bit. Now, I'd been told at the end of the show, someone will come and get you and take you back so you can meet Bruce. Great. So we've done all the cheering and all this, and we're sitting there. I'm chatting to this guy, wasn't it amazing? Oh, it was, yeah, oh, amazing. And then this bloke comes and gives us the nod. And I go, okay. And this guy sees what's happening, and he goes, oh, you're going to see him, aren't you? and I went, and he said, it was very funny, he said, take me with you. He said, I've been like a son to you. I said, I can't.
This
so
is where we must
we
part.
went back then, and so we got taken, and we go in this room, and he has given this incredible performance. And he comes in, you know, a little stiffer than, as we all are, a little stiffer after the show, right, than on the stage.
Sure.
And we get to talk to him for a bit, and there's a bunch of other people there, and da-da-da-da-da. And my wife said, you must be exhausted. And he went, I want to go home.
Been great, Bruce.
And I thought, well, that's it. I don't want to ask you anything else.
Yeah.
So that was that experience, and I didn't ask him for a photo or anything like that because I thought, I don't want to do that. Then, so that was that experience.
Yes.
And someone said, Rob is in the film, but I don't think he remembered me, you know. I think I said something like, I mean, it's embarrassing. I mean, I'm the one who did Thunder Road. And he went, you did it great. But bless him, he was being sweet, you know. Anyway, a couple of years later, however long it was, post-COVID, wasn't it, Western Stars?
No. Western Stars was just before.
Just before, was it?
Yeah, it was like it came out like towards the end of 2019.
Oh, okay. Well, I get a call from my now friend at the record company. He's coming over. There's a thing. Hey, boom, boom. You want to come? Yeah. So I took Reese, my friend who you met.
Reese is great. Yeah.
Took Reese and. Not Reese fans, if anybody is wondering, no, a different Reese. And we go. The first thing, so it's in the Hamyard Hotel, fancy hotel, which has a screening room in it, right? It's not a big cinema.
So this is a small affair.
Yeah, small
it's not
thing,
like
just for business, industry people.
Right.
So we get our seats are great. Our seats are right, you know, the nice bit. Bruce arrives. He sits literally in front of us in the next row. So I'm going to Reese. I'm going, and then it starts,
Contain
right?
yourself.
So we're watching it, and we're sat like behind him, literally behind him. But I'm thinking I might be in his peripheral vision here, so I have to be enjoying. And I was enjoying it, but I'm going, and then it finishes, and he does a Q&A on the stage. It's terrific, where he says, "Great sound." And then it's finished. Okay, fine, lovely. So we're having some drinks, and then they come and get me, come and say hi to Bruce. And we're the first ones. So we go in. Now this time, he greets me like a long-lost friend. So I think maybe he does now. I don't know, but he certainly gives a... And hey, man, how you doing? And he gives me a hug. I nearly burst into tears.
Yeah.
I mean, it was people who don't...
Yeah.
Maybe there are going to be people listening to this who don't get this, who are going to be saying, get a grip. Oh, it was such a big deal. So we chat, and it was terrific, and we had a photo, and Reese said as I gave the phone to him, my hand was shaking.
Yes. I know that feeling. Like I was at a gig where, you know, where he has a standing room, then it's seating just behind.
Yes.
And I managed to get the front row of the seating section. But we all stand anyway. Yeah. So, but you have that gap, and he walks around, and he's standing right in front of me.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be one of these people. I just reached out and put my arms around and gave him a hug. And I never thought I would do that. And I'm doing and he's so sweaty, but and he's like, and I was. Yeah, so I know the things that as grown men you end up happening to when you're in the vicinity of someone like that you admire.
But you see, he's a very special performer. He's a very special artist. He really is. There aren't many like him, and the bond he has with his audience
unbelievable,
is quite special.
And the trust he has for his audience.
Yes.
Watching him when he just launches into the crowd and they carry him along. And
he must have stopped that now. He's 17?
That's what. But the last time I saw him was the River Tour, which was maybe 2017, maybe.
Yeah.
And he did the jump.
Yeah, he still does it. Yeah.
But he came across right over my head, so I'm like
right
over my head, and I'm propping him up.
Stephen Merchant had that. Stephen Merchant.
Oh wow,
he
must have gone way up.
Well, that's what Steve does. A whole routine about it, where he said, "I was worried I was going to break his back or something." But that happened for Steve as well. Yeah.
Because you see him coming through the sea of people, and you go, oh my God, he's coming towards me.
Yeah.
And it was, but for me, watching that, like, the trust that he has for his audience to know it's all right.
Oh, nobody's going to drop him. They're not going to drop him.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be that person.
No.
I'm the one.
To see,
You see Bruce there in the wheelchair? Yeah, that was me. Yeah, nobody wants to be that one.
Yeah, it is something to see him live. I was doing, they have like VIP nights about the big arena that he was performing at, and I was there after he had done gigs for a different show, and I was doing like a kind of like a corporate kind of thing before the main event, and then I went out and I was just talking to one of the ushers, and I said, "Well, you would have seen so many great concerts, great performers." I said, "Who would be the best that you've seen?" And she said, was not a fan of his music, didn't really know anything about him. I watched Bruce Springsteen, and it was the most phenomenal concert I've ever seen. So people that aren't necessarily fans of his music, that do see him live, always come away going, amazing.
We're going to see him 1, 2, 3 times this year.
Oh, wow.
So all planned.
You're doing Hyde Park, right?
Yeah.
Billy Joel the first.
I'm going to see Billy Joel on the Friday and Bruce on the Saturday.
It's funny. That's what happened to me in 2018.
You love Billy, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love Billy, but you really love Billy.
Yeah. And seeing him at Madison Square Garden, I'd always heard, his home crowd, and I've also heard when the audience is rocking in that venue, how it actually rocks the whole venue. And sure enough, at Madison Square Garden, 20,000 people. Everyone's singing along. It's a sing-along. Like everyone knows all the lyrics.
Well, it's hit after hit in that show, isn't it? It's all hits.
To be honest, I would prefer some more obscure,
Yeah, but in terms of getting everybody in that audience,
one after the other. It's like watching McCartney. It's just one hit after the other.
Yeah, but even I think Paul McCartney puts in some songs that perhaps not everybody is yearning to hear. But I've looked at Billy Joel's playlist, set list, and it's. I think they're all. I mean, some people may not know songs like Zanzibar, or they may not know. But essentially, they're all hits.
My favourite song of Billy's is "Summer Highland Falls."
Yes.
And when I saw him in Sydney last time, I've seen him like 8 times. How many times have you seen Bruce, by the way?
Well, I would have to work this out. Do you want to?
We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
No.
Let's work it out now. This is what podcasts are for. They're indulgent and they take forever, and people seem to like the fact they take forever. Okay, first time was. I've never done this on camera. The first time was the Born in the USA tour.
Yes.
I'd like to say it was the River tour, but it wasn't. I got into him with the River. That was the first album I bought.
Right.
But I was too late to the parade to do the show. So, Born in the USA. Mm-hmm. I saw him twice on the Tunnel of Love tour.
Nice.
Once at Aston Villa's football ground and once at Wembley. All right, now this is where it gets hazy. What would I say? I saw him on the I'm jumping now. The band all got back together.
The Rising.
I saw The Rising. That's one. I saw him on the sort of tour after that Greatest Hits album. I saw that.
Right.
I saw the Seeger Sessions tour. I saw the solo Ghost of Tom Joad tour.
In a theatre? Was it a small?
It was in. Where was it? I can't remember where it was.
Okay.
It wasn't an arena.
Right.
I saw him. So now we're up to 7. I saw the Magic Tour.
Yep.
I saw him on Broadway. I saw him in Cardiff for the Wrecking Ball Tour.
In
That's
double
10.
digits. Yeah.
And I think there are probably a couple more.
Right.
So I'm sort of 10 to 12.
Yeah. That's great.
So
And
eight for Billy Joel.
And yeah. He's
So I win then.
You do, Rob. Yeah, by far. And you're going to see him 3 times this year.
So that's taking
you're
me up.
like
That's taking me up to the mid-teens.
Yeah, it's commendable. How many times Billy Joel?
Commendable. I've seen Billy Joel definitely once.
It'll be twice this year. It'll.
Maybe, I think only once.
Right. Okay. All right.
But I'm a proper fan.
Yeah. He was the first.
Twice.
Okay.
Twice.
Okay. Now when did you
I went
first
with
see
Peter Kay to see him
Oh,
once.
right.
Yes. And before that I went when I saw him nearly 29 years ago because my wife was pregnant with Katie, who I talk about in the show. That's when I talk about the birth.
Yes.
So
that would have been the River of Dreams.
River of Dreams tour.
Yes.
Is that what that would be? Yeah. And then I sing that song Lullaby in the show from River of Dreams.
Yeah.
And then I saw him with Peter. Peter was supporting him on some of those dates.
Really?
Not supporting him, sorry. He went to every show, and he got to know him. And at one of the dates, the piano came up at the beginning of the show, and it was Peter sat there, and he did his song. He had a big hit with Amarillo.
Right.
Although he didn't sing it, but he did that.
Yeah,
he did
played
that.
it. Yeah.
But I went to see him with Peter at Wembley.
And did you go backstage with Peter, or
No.
did he have that kind of connection?
We
Okay.
didn't. We just went in and we saw it. Right. Yeah. But I'm seeing him this year. And I can't wait.
Yeah. He's 2018. I saw him last, and he's still got it. You know.
Oh, yeah.
He's like you often think, oh wow, is it going to get to the point where can't hit that? Well, in terms of hitting notes like they all do now, they go down.
Well, you have to.
A few.
Yeah, you can't.
Like singing in B flat.
And people say that like it's some kind of failing. Well,
no, it's
can't.
like yeah.
It's like saying to an athlete, "Oh, you don't jump as high as you did 40 years ago. What's happened to you?"
Yeah.
Well, of course not.
Of course. Yeah. He's a great entertainer. Like, I remember I saw him on the Bridge tour. That was the first concert I ever saw, and I'd never been to a live arena before. I'd never experienced that, and I was like hooked. From then on, I'm like, man.
I like that album.
Yeah.
It's a lovely album. This is the time.
This is the time. That's my favorite track on the album. Yeah.
This is. I mean, what is it any wonder we get on? God's sake, this is ludicrous. Summer Highland Falls. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I discovered Zanzibar. I'd never really heard Zanzibar, oddly. Yeah. And then he did a great interview with Jamie Cullum back home and on the radio. Yeah. And Jamie is a big jazz fiend, of course, and there's that great jazz trumpet solo on Zanzibar.
Yes.
And that made me listen to Zanzibar, and that's one of my favorite songs now.
Yeah, that had a rebirth during COVID. There was like something going on TikTok with it, and I saw an interview with him. He said, "I got this whole new fan base now. I look out, and there's all these young people that came to him through that song."
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, on to the next.
Right, so
well, there's plenty more I want to talk about. On
we
Bruce
could talk about that forever.
Yeah.
So you've asked me for a film. Now, again, I could have chosen all number of films. Midnight Run, I often say.
Oh my God,
is one of my favorites.
That's truly one of mine. That is one of the best buddy films.
Well, the relationship I have with Steve in The Trip, I take a lot of inspiration from Charles Grodin.
Yes.
So I would be the Charles Grodin.
Yes.
And Steve in the De Niro role. I've often thought of that.
Yeah.
Whilst not comparing myself, obviously, but that would be an inspiration.
The soundtrack to that, Danny Elfman soundtrack, is brilliant as well.
There can't be many people who, if you said to them, hum me the tune from Midnight Run.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, Joel. This is spooky.
I think we should do a new podcast where we just talk about our favourite things. And we know we'll both know exactly what we're going to say next. I once saw a great interview with Charles Grodin, and he was talking about that film, doing that with De Niro. And he said there's a scene where he has his handcuffs, and they're not on camera. No one sees the handcuffs. And he said, look, they're really digging into me. Can we just take these handcuffs off? And De Niro's like, no, you keep them on. You keep them on. He's like, keep them on. And he says the next scene, De Niro puts his hand between the chain and starts squeezing it during the scene to dig in harder into it. And he said, and that was the scene that they end up using, just creating that antagonism between the two characters. Yeah.
Did you read his book, Charles Grodin's book?
No, I haven't.
Oh, great one. Look it up.
All right,
It's called. I think it's either called "It Would Be So Lovely If You Weren't Here," or "It Would Be So Nice If You Weren't Here," and it's his memoir. I think he did more than one, but the first one.
Okay.
He's gone now, isn't he, Charles? He's died.
Unfortunately.
It's a great book. Great book.
Okay.
And also, you can look up. He did wonderful talk show appearances where he played the kind of misanthrope, and he'd go on Letterman and Carson. He was fantastic. But it's not Midnight Run. No. But it could have been.
We could talk a whole podcast on Midnight Run.
I've chosen Spinal Tap. I mean, very predictable for a comedian to say Spinal Tap, but it's Spinal
Tap, limited edition.
But it's such. It's the gift that keeps on giving you. You know, Spinal Tap is so inspiring to comedians of my age and younger and older, and it's a beautiful piece of work you can just keep going back to. And I thought, for the context of this, I could talk about it. But there are lots of films. You can't choose one film.
I know. It's
hard. Impossible.
But Spinal Tap ages so well. You know, it's...
In as much as it doesn't age.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
It doesn't age, yes.
You're exactly right. And some films do. I went back to I love Pacino, and I went back to watch Sea of Love, which I remember adoring.
It's a great film,
And when I watched it again, and hey, I would love to make a film half as good as Pacino's worst film, but when I have to preface it by saying that, but when I went back, it was like an episode of Starsky and Hutch.
Really? It doesn't hold... I've got to go back and watch it.
And hey... Again, what's wrong with Starsky and Hutch? But it just didn't. It wasn't as fantastic as I remembered. Now, Spinal Tap. Number one, the people involved. So Harry Shearer, Michael McKean, and Christopher Guest. First of all, Rob Reiner. Boom.
Yeah.
But then Billy Crystal.
Yes.
Fred Willard.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Fred Willard once tweeted he'd just gone to see one of the Trips, and he tweeted the most complimentary things about it.
Wow.
So to have that Fred nod. Willard was a huge deal for me. I went back to Fred, thanks so much. I couldn't believe it, you know.
It would have been great. As like,
well, Fred.
I'm a fan of yours. Well, I'm a
not
fan
yours
of comedy.
the whole genre. No, not yours in particular, Rob, but the whole genre of comedy. I mean, Fred Willard.
Yeah, he could have the smallest part, and he'll shine.
His stuff in Anchorman, remember?
Yes.
And interesting with Fred, what people maybe don't know, he was part of a comedy group called the Ace Trucking Company, who featured in Tom Jones's series, This Is Tom Jones.
Really?
In the late 60s, early 70s.
Is that the one where he'd have guests on, and there's a class of Jerry Lee Lewis and him belting out the tunes?
Yes.
Right.
But and people bang on about that. Little Richard, Janis Joplin, Crosby, Stills and Nash, a great clip of him with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, because Neil Young was with them then, doing Long Time, It's Been a Long Time Coming. I think the song is called Long Time Gone or something. Anyway, that's not the point. Fred Willard used to do sketches on that show.
Right.
So he's in it. Is it Fran Drescher?
Yes. What is her name? I forget her name, but she's holding court at the
Well, who she plays in it? The name of the character.
What's her name again? I'm keep on thinking. Well, I want to say Artie Fufkin, but that was
that's Paul Schaefer. So Paul Schaefer is superb. And
Hilarious.
if you go on YouTube, and that's something you do a lot when you're touring, if you go on YouTube, you can find a collection of Spinal Tap appearetrances on Letterman.
Oh.
And they've got it from just before the film has come out. So there's Rob Reiner being interviewed. Letterman references that Paul Schaefer is on it, and he gives him a day off to go and do his bits, and they play clips. So the great thing now for people like us is that we have access to these clips that you would never have been able to get in the past.
No.
And
When I first saw YouTube, I thought, oh my God, I can look up all the old Bill Murray interviews on Letterman. It was like this archive of like, I was finding like the Holy Grail. It was
in the old days, you'd have had to go to the Museum of the Moving Image, or you'd have had to book an appointment, and the chances are they wouldn't have had what you wanted. I mean, I don't think young folk nowadays realise, Joel,
the trouble that
you know.
I remember going to the Lincoln Center to watch a production of Mike Nichols of Chekhov's The Seagull.
Yes.
And because I'd always heard about it with Constantine, with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Nina was Natalie Portman. The mother was Meryl Streep.
And if you go to the Lincoln Center, they have an archive copy of it.
You can watch any Broadway production, and you go in there. You say what do you want to watch on research purposes or whatever.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, and you can watch
anything.
Any
so you
Broadway
could watch
play.
Richard Burton in Camelot. Do they go back that far?
I would assume. Yeah.
You could watch. You could watch the original Odd Couple. You could watch.
That's a good question, because I don't know with the filming back then if they. But
I think maybe they did.
Probably. I would assume.
Very interesting.
And I'll sit there like for 2 hours just sitting there watching these old.
I know when I've been in plays, they'll say, oh, they're filming tonight's for
archival.
Some archival thing. Yeah.
So sorry, I'm just going off track there. But the trouble that you can go to
so Spinal Tap, hugely influential, fantastic. Yes. I've got to know Harry Shearer. He's a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
So that's been a delight. That's just been wonderful.
I loved Harry from when I was a kid watching the Simpsons. From through Spinal Tap.
Well, he had a season on Saturday Night Live, which I don't think he enjoyed. Didn't really. Christopher Guest was on it then.
Right.
And Billy Crystal. I don't think
in the 80s.
I don't think it suited him. Tap, and we can only say stuff people already know, but they are. It's quoted so widely within our business.
Yes.
You cannot be in our business and struggle to find your way to the stage
without saying
hello, Cleveland.
Yes.
And you can't, if you ever have a disagreement with somebody, you will say, we shan't work together again. And, it's
also, there's I'm sorry, I've got to go and wait for
I did that. I put that on, I took a photograph when we were in Auckland at the start of the tour, and they had the classic glass lobby of a hotel. It was a Sofitel like this. And I took a photo of the lobby, and I said, and I didn't say what it was from, but people realised, and I put, would love to stand around and talk, but we've got to go and sit in the lobby and wait for the limo.
Nice.
And, that much talent.
Yeah.
And they were still booing him when we were on.
When we were on. Just reminding me of that scene there. A friend of Erica's is Paul Shortino, who's walking by when they see him. She was in a show called Raiding the Rock Vault in Vegas with him.
Well, does he play Duke Fame?
Yeah,
well, that's him.
Yeah. And he's like a bona fide sort of rock legend himself.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it's it was one of those films that. Little snippets, like you can quote things or watch like, a little 2-minute part of it that hold up. But as a collective, like you look at the storyline of it, which I guess it comes, similar to Midnight Runaway, it's a buddy film.
Yeah.
It's these two guys
That's right.
that, have this, they have these moments throughout, but, at the end they come back together. There's a mutual sort of admiration. It's kind of like a relationship story.
Doesn't David say at one point it's very hard for Nigel and I to be in the same room sometimes because there's so much love? And then Janine comes in. That's so well observed, the way that
the
suddenly
Yoko
there's a girlfriend.
Scenario. Yes.
I mean, but for that dynamic, it doesn't have to be as extreme as the Yoko Ono situation, because I've had experiences where somebody's partner is suddenly there.
Right.
It just shifts the dynamic, you know. And then she starts to, she gives those drawings, doesn't she?
So what, you want us to dress up as animals? They're not animals, they're astrological,
I mean,
And he's wearing the cardigan
yeah.
with the satin print on it, you know.
And then at the end, another line one might quote is, you know, they go, Sex Farm is #1 in Japan. Oh, is it or something? And then they go, yeah, have a great show. Or I've heard from so-and-so, oh, what, the other dead man? I mean, there are so
and
many.
in regards to that, Japan, like, is it our version?
Oh, is that? I don't remember that.
It was something like, yeah, he goes, it's our version, you know.
Oh, that's like no. Oh, and when they're asking Nigel what other jobs he could have done, you know, I could have worked in did he say chapeau, a hat shop? You know,
Yeah.
what do you think? Really, you think you could do that? I don't see why not. You know, I mean, you know, let's try it. And he goes, do you have it in another size? And then he says, you really could do that? And he said, well, I don't know. What are the hours? It's glorious from start to finish. It really is.
And watching it again years later after watching Mighty Wind, I thought...
Oh, that's great as well.
Yes.
That's another fantastic film.
And I thought, I wonder if that band could have gone on and not become Spinal Tap, but become the band in Mighty Wind, because they were doing that folky kind of stuff initially, and it could have gone in that direction.
That's interesting,
too.
isn't it? That's very interesting. Yeah, because they start out with listen to what the flower people say and give me some money.
Yeah. So
And the manager, you know, Ian Faith,
yes,
played by, and we lost him recently as well. Played by, he was a very interesting guy. Steve Coogan knows a lot about the guy that played Ian Faith.
Right.
He was a very interesting bloke. He had a curious story to his career, but I think he's gone now. And he's the one, just so good, so good.
Just in the little differences with his character as a tour manager, I thought was interesting, because with the Stonehenge screw up when it's 18 inches, and he's going off for Angelica Houston's character, like, look at it, that's the sketch, not 18 inches, not 18 inches. And then later on, when he's around with the whole band, they're like, look at it, it's so small. He goes, well, that's what you wrote on there, 18 inches. You know, there's that little turnaround. You know?
Yes.
That's which is, like, I've seen that before, with people on the road, like, they don't want to take any responsibility for it, so it's everyone else's fault. Yeah. Which is funny for a tour manager to do that, because they're usually the ones who have to take the responsibility.
So good.
Yeah. It's it's repeatable watching. So for anyone that's listening that either hasn't seen it or hasn't seen it in a while, Spinal Tap, it's definitely worth revisiting.
It's just superb. Which brings us now to to books, and this is a problem for me, because I struggle with books, but here's the conundrum. When I find a book I love it, and I can't wait to return to that world of the book and sit there and read it. But I really struggle to take the time. Oh, I did an upward inflection. Rob, get a grip, please. I struggle to take the time to the great actors. Richard Burton would never upward inflect. Every sentence would end on a down. It's true. Think about it.
Yeah.
I began working in the theatre as a young man, and I looked at the great actors that had gone before me and thought perhaps I could emulate them. You know? And if he were around now, as a child, I dreamt of acting.
Well, that would be the Australian Richard Burton. I dreamt of acting.
Yeah, as a child, I looked at the other actors and I wondered, maybe one day I'd marry Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, unbelievable.
That's a great Australian accent, by the way. You rarely hear someone that pulls off a
I wonder
decent
why,
Australian accent.
I said it's because I listen to so much of Barry's stuff. I do find it quite an easy one to do, and I enjoy doing it.
It's rare to hear it done that well. It's like not even Meryl Streep could get it down to that.
But I've always said I'm better than Meryl Streep.
Yes. Well, it goes on.
I mean, I how many times do I have to say it? So books, I struggle to focus on them, to concentrate on them. But when I do, I love them. You said to me, book, and my heart sank, because I thought, oh, geez, what am I gonna say? I also struggle to remember which books I've read. So I've chosen a book, right? I'm not saying this is the best book ever. I'm not saying it's my favorite book. it's a book I can remember reading, and one I would like people to read,
Yeah.
and there's things I can say about it. So, it is Hot Milk by Deborah Levy, or Levy. Would you pronounce that Levy, probably, wouldn't it be? Like Daniel Levy?
Yeah, wouldn't Eugene Levy?
Eugene is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, yeah.
Daniel is the son, isn't it? Yeah. Eugene Levy.
Eugene Levy.
Well, let's call her
Levy.
Deborah Levy then. Okay. This is a book, and when I got into reading it, a friend recommended it, and I got into reading it. It's very, very, very atmospheric. So I can talk about it, and I can say it represents something that I love in books that I do love, which is you get totally immersed
In that world.
in that world.
Right.
So I'm not going to pretend to be an authority on it. Propulsive, uncanny, dreamlike, a feverish coming-of-age novel, triumph of storytelling, extraordinary, beautifully rich, true, vividly atmospheric, yes.
There you go.
Psychologically complex, yes. Transfixing gaze, yes. It's really interesting. It's
What is the
what's the
premise?
basis? It's well, it's to do with she tries to find a cure or something. Her mother is ill. Well, you've not read it, have you? You may have to edit around this because.
Have you read
Well,
it?
no. I can be entirely honest with you.
Yeah. It's very forgettable.
No. The feeling of it. You asked me to come up with a book, and I struggled. I went, and then maybe I saw this in a bookshop, and I went, oh, I loved that when I read that. Am I going to have to read? Can I read it again?
Well, that's my gift to you. It's, from my understanding, it's about a mother and daughter that go to Spain.
Yeah.
And the mother has all these ailments.
Yes.
And the daughter is
That's right.
doing a PhD in something or other, and anthropology perhaps. And she.
I can't decide whether it's incredibly embarrassing that I can't give you a synopsis, or whether there's a beautiful honesty.
Yeah.
Look, why don't I, rather than that, why don't I just read the book
Yes.
to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. Why not?
Hot Milk by Deborah Levy.
We've got a few hours.
2015, Almeria, southern Spain, August. Today, I dropped my laptop on the concrete floor of a bar built on the beach. It was tucked under my arm and slid out of its black rubber sheath, designed like an envelope, landing screen side down. The digital page is now shattered, but at least it still works. My laptop has all my life in it and knows more about me than anyone else. So what I'm saying is that if it is broken, so am I. Now I think that's a lovely beginning.
That is. It really hits the ground running with summing up. It's very symbolic with that laptop being broken.
I'm kind of mortified that I can't sum it up for you. I am embarrassed, but all I can say is I am 100% sincere in saying I loved it.
Yes. There's something nice about that to be able to it's the what are my words I'm looking for here? The essence of it is left with you, as opposed to.
No, I think now we're both slightly embarrassed, and we're trying to justify. We're trying to dig out. The fact is, I've come on this, and I chose this because I went, oh yeah, I loved that book. But the fact is, I can't remember a detailed analysis of it. All I can tell you is, 100% genuinely, I loved it. It's atmospheric. You immerse yourself in it. I can't remember the details.
Well, Spinal Tap was great. Great film. I'm going to read this, and then next time we have a conversation.
One of us has to.
Speaking of books, I just finished reading a book, which I thought Rob, and now after this conversation, I think you'd love this book. Mm-hmm. It's the autobiography of Jerry Weintraub.
I've read that.
Oh,
I met Jerry Weintraub.
You did?
You want the story?
Oh, please.
Okay. Maybe you can edit out the whole the whole book debacle. Why don't we say instead, Jerry Weintraub, I'll know I'm dead when I finish talking, or something like that, yeah?
Yeah.
We could talk about that one instead.
Yeah, we could talk.
Like, leave it in. I'm only human. My wife is going to be mortified. My wife has read more books than I've bought. I'm very good at buying books.
Yeah.
I love buying books.
You got shelves full of, and you know, I think when I look at my bookshelf, I think of the great Schopenhauer quote, which is, when you buy a book, you think you're buying the time to read it.
I love that. How have I not heard that?
Yeah. And every time I look at my bookshelf, that quote comes to mind.
Oh, it's glorious.
Yeah.
Jerry Weintraub was a Hollywood producer, again, like so many of the people in our conversations, no longer with us. He produced The Karate Kid, the Ocean's 11 movies. He began as a music promoter.
Yes.
And he promoted Frank Sinatra, the main event where Sinatra performed in almost like a boxing ring at Madison Square Garden. And he was involved in promoting Elvis Presley in the 1970s. I had seen his name as an Elvis fan. I'd seen the name Jerry Weintraub, odd name, so it stood out.
On tour?
That's right.
On tour.
Yeah. You see it on that, And you think, who's that guy? Then you become aware of him. And he was a colourful figure. There's a fantastic documentary that you must have. You seen the documentary?
His Way?
Yeah, where it shows that incredible house he owned.
Yeah.
Is it Palm Springs or Vegas?
I think that one was Palm Springs.
With the pool that goes...
Yeah, and the glass underneath in the bedroom. Yeah.
Anyway, he wrote a book. And I read it, and I can remember it. But I met him.
Yeah.
I did a part in a series, a little remembered... I've been in several little remembered series, but one of them was called The Brink. And it was on HBO, and it starred Jack Black and Tim Robbins. And that night the night I went back to see Bruce on Broadway, Tim Robbins was also there that night. So it ties in with that. He was there.
And did Tim come backstage with you?
Yes, he was backstage as well in this thing. Okay. And we were able to say, hey, we met briefly, and he claimed to remember, because we did a read-through. Jack Black, Tim Robbins, and I guested on 3 episodes, maybe 2. Lots of fun. Well, I get all the details. Bloody hell, Jerry Weintraub is the producer on this? So I go out to America, to Los Angeles. Well, let's say it, Hollywood.
Yes.
Why shy away from it, Joel? And we have a read-through. Everyone's around the table. In comes Jerry bloody Weintraub. Wow. And he laughs a bit at the script. It's a comedy. After that, then everybody disperses.
Jerry's still there?
Well, no, me think, was this before? No. Then we go to have our lunch. So I'm in an office thing. Some people go, but I'm staying because maybe I've got wardrobe fittings or something. Right. So I get my lunch on a paper plate. Somebody says, right, you can sit in here if you want to, Rob. This is Jerry's office. All right. Okay, so presumably Jerry's not around. So I go and I sit down, and there are all these framed photos of him with George Bush and Sinatra and people like that. Wow, in Jerry's office. And all of a sudden I can hear a guy coming down the corridor with
that
a
Bronx
dog.
accent.
Yeah, hi, Jerry. Hi, Jerry. I'm thinking...
Cleaning everything.
And he comes in, and I'm in his bloody office, right? And he goes, no. I go, oh, hi, sorry. I went, hi, I'm Rob, I'm playing, I can't remember the name of the character, let's say he was Joe, right? Yeah. Oh, I'm Rob, I'm playing Joe. And he goes, yeah, I'm Jerry, I'm playing Jerry. And I'm, well, I better get out from under your skin. And I get out. So it was not the meeting of minds.
Right.
It was not what I'd imagined, which is me asking him numerous questions about Elvis, la, 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 la. But
it makes for a good scenario, though.
Yeah.
Do you find that when you have those good meetings, but when you have a scenario like that where you're in his office eating lunch, he comes in, it's more interesting,
listen, what's going to happen? How could it have gone better?
Yeah.
I mean, we had a nice exchange with him. It was interesting, and then I did the show. He got ill not long after that, actually, and shuffled off.
Yeah, but it was nice knowing that after he'd gone, there's a chapter where he talks about that moving on, and he said, when his parents died, he realized that was the last frontier. Now it's
Oh,
me
well,
next.
look, yeah, I
and-
think when you think about death, you know, something that's very comforting is you're not being singled out.
yeah, yes, yeah.
You know, it's going to happen to us all. How old are you now?
I'm 43 now.
57, you see, so you know. And I know a lot of older actors and older comedians now in their 80s, you know, and that's very interesting to kind of get their perspective on things. And
But that's what I really admire about you is the respect you have for those who have come before.
Oh, yeah,
and carrying on that tradition.
Yeah, I have.
Not to get all about today's sort of industry or what have you, but I just feel there's not enough homage given to those who have come before. And the fact
Maybe. I certainly am very aware and very respectful and very affectionate
Yes.
towards those. I remember when I first met Barry Humphries, which would be in, well, he said he was, I'm 70, I think he was 76, and I think he's now 89, so 13 years ago.
Wow.
And I said to him in the course of our conversation, we had a big conversation straight off, I said, I have to say I've taken a lot of what you've done. I've been very inspired by you, and I've had, I hope you don't mind, you know, that you. And he says, it's wonderful that somebody is carrying the torch.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, now, and what happens is then as one gets older, as you get older, you see it, and I see it now because I see younger. I used to always struggle to think that these older people would accept me or be interested in talking to me. Why would they? I don't think that way now because I know myself that when I meet younger comedians like James Acaster would be a good example of that. I want to spend time with him.
Yeah.
I think he's fantastic.
Yes.
So I go, oh, I get it,
Yeah.
in a way that I didn't before.
Right. Well, thank you for taking the time today to sit down and, you know, share the journey.
I've read this. I absolutely loved it. All that happened was when we got to that moment, and you know what? In the run-up to doing this, because I've known I'd be doing this for a few days, I've been thinking, I should maybe just skim read Hot Milk again.
Yeah.
But please, listener and viewer, I am totally sincere when I say I loved it. I became immersed in it.
Well, I look forward. I'm going to read it now after today. So thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.